So guys, I just posted a video talking about the rumors, the leaks around the Apple iPhone Fold. And in that video, I talked about some of the rumored dimensions. Okay, so a 7.58 inch internal display and a 5.38 inch external display. We looked at some renders that someone had made kind of based on those measurements. Bob_Oba, I'm not exactly sure how you would pronounce that. They made that, and this should be fairly representative of what a device with those dimensions would have to look at, or look like, I should say. But I wanted to kind of take this a step or two further. So I took those measurements, I did some Pythagorizing, and I ended up printing something out that I think will help us visualize what we are talking about. So the way to look at this is going to be as the screen size for the iPhone Fold, right? We don't know the dimensions of the device itself, the bezel size, the hinge size, any of that stuff. So this is going to be a rough estimation based on the leaked measurements. This would be the screen size and aspect ratio of the cover display, and then put side by side, you would have the size and aspect ratio of the inner display. Again, just the display, not the bezel, not the hinge, but it should be enough to give us a ballpark idea of what we're talking about. And I also did print it out to be 4.5 millimeters thick, which seems to be a common rumor for the thickness of this device. Just so I can kind of show you this, I printed out this little strip here, which is exactly, I don't remember what number I just said, 7.58 inches diagonal. And if you line this thing up diagonal, you can see that that is exactly what that is. So if you're just curious, yes, this is 7.58 inches diagonal. And then I didn't print anything out to do the measurement here, but the closest that we're going to get would be something like 5 3/8 inches, and you can see there that that's pretty much where we're at. So all of this does line up. The measurements do line up, and they do make sense. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do some size comparisons. This should be very interesting. And the first thing I want to grab is the original Pixel Fold. So this is a device that a lot of people, including myself, have kind of pointed to and said, oh, it's going to be kind of like this Passport design. Ladies and gentlemen, no, it's not. I mean, it is in a way, but man, that is a ton shorter and a ton wider than even the Passport style design of the Pixel Fold. That is absolutely crazy looking. And if we open this thing up and we place the screen on top, we can see this is just going to be a significantly smaller device than the original Pixel Fold. The width is very, very similar, but we are losing a significant amount of height here with this device. That is very, very interesting. And then looking at the thickness, don't look at the total thickness, just look at the thickness of 1/2. And I mean, look, it's going to be totally fine, okay? 4.5 millimeters, work, again, leaks, rumors, so forth and so on, but I think that's fine. Let's get really crazy. Let's put this thing next to the Galaxy Z Fold 7. Have you ever seen anything more bizarre looking than that? That is absolutely crazy. I mean, we're losing a quarter of the height of the phone, the cover display at least, with this thing. That is bizarre. And then on the inner screen, again, it's a little bit wider than, but look at all of that real estate that you're losing. This is such an interesting little experiment here, because what it says to me is, we've talked about, are they going to do iPad things on a screen this size? And on a screen this size, do you really need proper window management? We've talked about it on the Z Fold 7, on the Z Fold line of phones. We've said, well, the screen size isn't quite big enough. I would love to have the option, but it's not quite big enough. It's definitely not big enough to make any sense on this. So I think if you have any thought about the iPad overlap, like, oh, this is basically an iPad, I don't see how that's even possibly going to be true. It's just not. It's so much smaller. We do also have the Pixel 10 Pro Fold, if you want to see how that looks, and it's just about as ridiculous as it was on the Galaxy Z Fold 7. I need to clean the inner screen on this thing just a little bit, and there is your inner screen. So much screen real estate being lost here. How many of these should I do? This is the Magic V5. Again, same kind of thing going there. Let's do this though. Let's rotate this around just so you can kind of see that as well, because I know if I don't do that, people are going to ask. It's really about the same, because you got to keep in mind, most of these folding phones now, the inner screen is basically squared off, so rotating it really won't make a huge difference. It might make a bigger difference on the Z Fold 7 because it still is like the least square of most of them, but it's still a pretty big difference. So yeah, rotating it really isn't going to make too big of a difference there in terms of the size that you're going to be losing with a device like this. I'm just trying to imagine like using a phone like this that is this small and that is this like wide and short. I really liked the original Pixel Fold, but this is like it's crazy. Like, it's really hard for me to even imagine that Apple is going to release a device like this. But man, think about the one-handability. I mean, that is like as one-handable as any screen has been in a long, long time. And there's part of me that really genuinely hopes this is real. This is what they're going to be doing. And again, you're going to have a little bit of space around it. You're going to have a hinge over here. You're going to have, you know, a speaker up here. There's going to be some space. I mean, if you look at the Z Fold 7, you can see what I'm talking about. It's not going to be a lot, right? They can get this pretty small, but there's going to be at least a little bit of space being taken up there. But nonetheless, this is a truly bizarre design for a phone. Ladies and gentlemen, I almost just had to turn in my nerd card because I almost forgot about Surface Duo. Let's get a background here that will work better. We'll just drag an image to span so we can kind of get an idea here, because there's large black bezels on the top and bottom. How does this iPhone Fold compare? And it's actually the closest that we have seen yet. The height is almost identical. There's a status bar up top, so don't ignore that. Let's actually push this up to the status bar, and you can see it easier down here. Then obviously there is some space there as well. So this is smaller than Surface Duo 2. Let's go into phone mode. Boy, this thing has not been booted up for a while, and it is lagging. Here we go. So that is the cover display, should we say, just one screen turned on. So not a huge difference here. This is definitely the closest form factor. It's almost like a small Surface Duo. Now keep in mind, you're not going to have bezels anywhere near this big. So it's not going to be physically this large. So this is a little bit kind of misleading. You would think this thing has much larger screens, but in reality, it really doesn't. So one more thing that I want to quickly touch on is multimedia. So this is my Galaxy Z Fold 7, and we have a 16:9 video on the screen. And if I try to line this thing up such that we are seeing how much of a black bar we're going to have here when it comes to viewing 16:9 content, you can see it is still pretty darn significant. Now, if we try to kind of center this like that, it's going to be a lot smaller, just a little bit of a bar there and a little bit of a bar there. But this is not a 16:9 screen. Now, I will say, if you close it and you overlap it, that might even end up being a little bit closer when it comes to 16:9 content. And then, of course, rotating it, well, that's just going to be worse. You're going to have bigger bars on the top and bottom. It's already in, by default, the best orientation you're going to have for 16:9 content. And if you go to an even wider screen aspect ratio, a more cinematic ratio, that's only going to get worse. So this is still not going to be a device that's going to be really tailored for multimedia, although you could say that potentially, I mean, it could end up being better than on the Z Fold 7. We'll kind of line this up again as well. There's the top of the video. There's the bottom of the video. So yeah, I mean, the bars aren't as big and the size is really similar. So if that bothers you, if you want to have smaller black bars, letterboxing, pillar boxing, it's possible this might be a little bit better than like something like a Fold 7. There's so many things about this that are just like beyond fascinating to me. Go back to the original Galaxy Z Fold, and it's so very clear that Samsung thought the cover display was kind of an afterthought. It was all about the inner screen, and the aspect ratio they chose was a more normal aspect ratio. Now, they just chose to unfold it in the other direction. Like if you go back and you get this, the alleged iPhone Fold, and then you fold it the other way, like that's going to be pretty close to the original Z Fold. I haven't gone and looked at the measurements. I'm just kind of spitballing here, but you know what I mean. The original Z Fold said inner display is the important one. When Pixel moved, Google said, Yeah, the inner display is really important. We want to kind of make sure that it's like a normal tablet, but we're kind of going to split the difference between the two, right? We're going to not go full tablet. It's a little bit tall compared to most tablets. And then, of course, they did open it the other way, which gave them this sort of short, wide aspect ratio cover display. Other foldable manufacturers have come along, and Google has also adopted this. Samsung has also adopted this, where they've all kind of shifted into saying, okay, the cover display needs to be like a normal phone. And then the inner display is just going to be whatever it's going to be. And it's basically going to be a square. That's just kind of where we've all landed. And Apple is saying, apparently, allegedly, rumored, Apple is just saying, no, that's not what we're doing. We are going to go back to saying that that inner display, the tablet screen, is the priority, and we're going to have an aspect ratio that's going to be basically like an iPad mini, and by virtue of that, when you close it, you're going to have this. You're going to have something that is just, maybe I should have printed this in white. Would have been easier to see. Would have showed up on camera a bit better, but I didn't, so here we are. It's going to be something that's going to take what Pixel did, what Google did, and take it to even more of an extreme than they did. Again, this stuff is absolutely beyond fascinating to me. So guys, I would love to hear what you think about all this in those comments down below. How do you feel about the idea of using a phone with a screen this size and this aspect ratio? Is that something that you would want to actually use? I keep saying it. I am extremely intrigued by this concept. And then look, guys, if you don't like that cover display, it'd be great for quickly typing out a message or just doing some basic stuff. And if you want to use a bigger screen, you have an iPad mini. You just open the thing up and it's not really a problem anymore. Is Apple, I should say. I guess Google too. Was Google onto something? Is Apple onto something now here as well? I know some of you are going to say yes to that, guys. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content like this. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.